Good afternoon, students. The next part of our discussion will go on biodiversity and conservations. So, to start with biodiversity and conservation, we will have some conceptual things. First, we will discuss on first the part of that is biodiversity and conservation, where we will go for. So, in today's class we will cover on the concept of biodiversity. Second, we will study the pattern of biodiversity. Third, we will study about the importance of biodiversity. Fourth one, we will see the loss of biodiversity. In the next part, I will go for this conservation, that is how biodiversity can be conserved. So, once we know its importance and how it is helpful to us, then we can go for its conservations. So, to start with the concept of biodiversity, one must be knowing that the biological diversity, that every words you will find that this buzzword you will find, that is your biodiversity. So, bio means, or bios means is life. The diversity means you will find form. So, one can say that these are the two Greek words, that is bios and the diversity. The bios and diversity. So, we can say the definition is that this is the variety of life forms occurring around us is referred to as biodiversity, or some says it is the occurrence. It is the occurrence of life forms around us. So, it is the occurrence of life form around us. We know it as the your biodiversity, and we must be knowing in this chapter particularly some scientists' name are very important. So, one of the scientists, that is W.G. Rosen, R.O.S.E.N. 1935. Actually, he is the person who coined the term. Another scientist who is a sociologist, that is, his name is, you will find Edward Wilson, is the Edward Wilson in 1992. I think it's in 1992. He is a sociologist. He used the term. Used the term in the different aspect. So, why we are important? After this, these scientists, they try to use this word for a different forms. So, what particularly it says? The diversity of the living organism. It's from the all these sorts of things, that is from your animal, plant, microbes, everything. And if you will be more specific, it is the whole range of mammals, birds, insect, reptiles, amphibian, fish, microorganisms, your plants, many things are there. You will find everywhere there is a diversity is there, your variety is there, there is a variation is there. And if you see this biodiversity magnitude today, you will find very interesting. If you will study about the magnitude of the biodiversity, how much actually it is there, we will discuss about the magnitude of biodiversity. We will find very interesting that today the earth, what we are finding today, it is because of 3 million years evolution process. Because of 3.5 million years evolution process, today we are here. Now, if you see this, today you will find in the earth around 13 to 14 million species are there. 13 to 15 million species are there. And out of this, till now, 1.5%, 15% you can say, 15%. So around 1.5 to 1.75 million is the known species. That means it is identified. The variety when you see is a lot. But out of this we have identified, we know around 1.5 to 1.75 million species. So out of this, if you see that species, one organization is there that is called IUCN. That is called your I stands for International Council of Nature, International Council of International Union of Conservation of Nature and Natural Resource. According to this organization, you will find today there are variety of the species you will find. If you see that you will talk about the animal, their proportion is 70%. If you see the plant, around 22%, and the rest of the organism. That shows in this diversity, animal is playing a great role. That, and if you see the animal again, you will find a very interesting. If you see animal, their distribution, if you see, two-third portion, 75% is your, you will find your insects are there. That is your invertebrate. So under invertebrate, you will find 75% is insect. And if you take the vertebrate, you will find there are similarly half of the vertebrate is your bird. This is your bird. And you will find, this is your fish. Here you will find fish is playing a major role. And we mammals are very less here, also birds like this. And if we talk about the plants, you will find 50% is your around, this is fungi, this is your angiosperm, the rest bryophyte, pteridophyte, gymnosperms, the rest are there. So that shows how these variety of species, they have been distributed to have this diversification in this earth. So that shows how they have been distributed, and if you see from their number side also it is very interesting. If you compare 2 to 3 species, its number, how in global level and in so far India we can understand. Suppose we are taking example of mammals now. If you take mammals as examples, if you take mammals as example, in world it is around 4,650, in India around 300, the number of species you will find. If you take the fish populations, fishes, in world it will find 28,000, but in India you will find 2,460. This is according to IUCN 2004. Similarly, if you take the algae into consideration, you will find all over world you will find around 40,000. In India it is 6,500. Now this shows that India is playing a very great role in the diversity of the organisms, so is playing a major role in the biodiversity of the world. Now to know how this diversity is there. Now why so much of diversification is there? Is it useful to human beings? How it appears? So you need to go deep into the things, then only we can analyze. So for that we need to know what is the level of biodiversity. So next part we will discuss what is the level of levels of biodiversity. Now if you see the level, so this is called your hierarchical levels. So you will find there are three hierarchy. One is first is called your genetic diversity. Second one is called your species diversity. Third one is called your ecological diversity. So let us come to the genetic diversity. Now, is this genetic diversity, species diversity, all are interdependent. So if you see the genetic diversity, the definition is like this. You will find it is the variation in the genetic composition. It is the variation in the genetic composition of individuals within or among the species, within the same species or among the species. So you will find that variation. So when we talk about genetic diversity in detail, we can now know that in genetic diversity, particularly what we are going to do, we are going to see the number and the type of genes, chromosomes present in different species, and the variation in the genes. Not only its presence, variation in the genes that we need to know. Genes and alleles. So that is important. How much is there and what type of variation is there, that we need to know. So it can be very clearly understood if you see that how this genetic diversity varies among the species. If you take a very well-known project that is called Human Genome, you must be knowing the Human Genome Project, that your Homo sapiens, particularly we people, that is Human Genome Project, you must be knowing, that is Homo sapiens, you will find around 30,000 to 40,000 genes are there. You will find 30 to 40,000 genes are there. That Human Genome Project in the USA, which identify this, that that is your National Human Genome Research Institute in USA, that is identified this. If you see similarly Oryza sativa dhanare, so you will find Oryza sativa, there are around 32,000 to 50,000 genes are there. So you are now find there is a range you are finding. So this shows, if you say bacteriophage, if you see a bacteriophage, you will find there are 100 genes are there. So this shows that there is a diversification or variation in the genetic composition of the organisms. So how it helps us? Now these things helps us in two ways. They will help in evolution of new species, or you can say that is your you can say this is your help in speciation. It helps in speciation. Second one, you can say it provide a protection. It provide protection against the disease. So if there is a variation in the genetic diversity, it will help fight against the disease. So this is what we can say is the genetic diversity. Now one can say more is the genetic diversity, it can more adapt to the changing environmental conditions. You can say changing environmental condition, it can adopt more genetic diversity. Next come to the second one, the species diversity. Now species diversity is the species richness, we can say, or we can say the species diversity is the variety of species present in an ecosystem. Second, we can go to species diversity, or we can say the definition is like variety of species present in an ecosystem, or other way we can say it is the species richness of an area, or we can say also it is the species richness, how much number of species are there, number of species that will gives, that means we can say the number of species per unit area. So that is now going to give the idea how the number of species is there. So from that one can know if it is equal number more or less, so that will give a evenness. You will get a evenness, NESS. So now this evenness means you are finding more or less the number of equal number of individual in that community. So you are finding if in a community equal number are finding. Now sometimes you will find more number of one species is there, then that you will find the dominant species are there. If that more number of particular species is there in that, it will be a dominant species. So once dominant species is there, so that will lead to unevenness. That will lead to unevenness of the, there you will find, and you will find one very easy one, greater, if you will find greater evenness. Suppose there is greater evenness, or sometimes you will find there is lower evenness. So greater evenness means one type of species is more there. So you will find same number of species is there, so you will find the diversity is less. So here you will find less diversity. So diversity is less. Lower evenness means you are finding variety is different, you are finding, that means the diversity is more. And one example if you can cite will be, which will be very easy to understand. Suppose in a community you are finding, one example we can take in this regard, if it will be very easy to analysis, that is, suppose there are 3 bird species are there. 3 bird species, the number is 411. Second case, there are 3 bird species with 2 individuals. That means 2, 2, 2. So, but third case, you are finding 3 species with a taxonomic group is different. Taxonomic group. That means here you are finding bird and insect. Now somebody will ask you where the species diversity is more. So one can say here the species diversity will be less. Here it may be it will be more than this, but here it will be highest diversity will be there, because you are finding 3 species are variation is there. So that gives, that species diversity gives us the idea how the biodiversity is there. So third one we can take the important one, that is called the ecological diversity. So third one is ecological diversity. Ecological diversity. Now when we talk about the ecological diversity, it is also known as ecological diversity is also known as community or ecosystem diversity. Student, before that, one thing we can add to the species diversity, there is two word comes. One is called the Shannon index, SHANNON, Shannon index. This is related to your species diversity. That Shannon index, or you can say from this diversity index, we now talk about the species index or the diversity index when used for ecological studies. That diversity index, we know that is that your species diversity that we have discussed earlier. So that when is called the diversity index used for the ecological studies, that is called the Shannon index. Now let us come to the ecological diversity or the your community or ecosystem diversity. That means the species diversity in a given community. That we can say it is the species diversity. We can say this is the species diversity in a given community, or we can say the habitat, the place where the organism resides. So that we have discussed in earlier. Now we need to know a specific area now we are studying. So another we can say the diversity of the ecosystem and its habitat. Other word we can say the diversity in an ecosystem or in its habitat is known as the ecological diversity. One of the great scientists called Whitaker in the 1935, he actually categorized this ecological diversity into three types. So first one is called your alpha diversity. Second one is called your beta diversity. Third one is called your gamma diversity. Now what is alpha diversity? Now, so very easy to understood, it is alpha diversity or alpha index diversity. Sometimes it is also called alpha index diversity. That is the variation or diversity. Try to remember, this is within the community. This is within the community or the diversity within a community. That means, let us take an example. This is a community, this is species A, this is species B. Now within this species A and B, the variation that we can say this is alpha index. So within a community you are finding that variation is there. Suppose second is, this is between the comment, this is called the beta index. This is a beta index, this is between the community. That means this is community 1, this is community 2. So in between these two community, so here your species, so here you have species. So now within these two community, when there will be the variation, when we compare is, then is called the your beta variations, beta diversity. The third, this is very important, this beta variation is between the community and this is range of community. We can say here you talk about this is a range of community, and how, when it takes place, when there is a replacement of species, one species is replaced by other. So that shows your beta diversity. So third one is, that is gamma index or gamma diversity. So that is, we can say diversity present in the range of a community. Here you will find range of community present between habitat and ecosystem. That means, if you talk about this one, this is a one community, this is another community, this is So now this variation in this ecosystem, so we can say this is a diversity present in the range of a community represented by the habitat or ecosystem over a total landscape. So here we are finding in the total landscape whatever the variation is there. These are the community you are finding. So in this community whatever variation is there, that is your gamma index, or you can say that is the gamma diversity. Now this is, you will find over a landscape geographical area. Landscape and geographical area, the variation we took, that is called your gamma diversity. Now if you see, talk about the different community or ecosystem, you take desert, rainforest, deciduous, these forests you will find the variation we are finding. So far India is rich in biodiversity, that is why you will find the diversity is very high. But if you take an example of a country like Norway, the diversity, the ecological diversity is very less. So in India, we can say the ecological diversity is very high. In Norway, a country where this ecological diversity is very less. So this gives us idea how we can study the biodiversity at this three level, that is alpha, beta and gamma. Now we will now focus on the biological diversity in India at particular. So now we know how this biodiversity is there in different levels. Now if we talk about India in particular, you will find the biodiversity of India, what I was telling, this is very diversified, and depending upon the, now we are talking about the biodiversity in India. Now you will find, if it is taking the consideration of its geographical region, if you are taking the geographical region, if you see the biodiversity in India, that you will find there are key words, key point need to be remembered from the point of examinations. If you see, there are 12 mega diversity zone in the world. Mega diversity zone in world. Out of this, one is in India. So we can say India is one of the mega biodiversity countries, or you can say this is called, one is the center of mega biodiversities. This is important. If you find, India is among the 17th mega diversity regions. Mega diversity region. And if you talk, in Asia it is 4th. Asia it is 4th. And very important, you will find, due to its unique geographical position, India is one of the mega biodiversity regions, and you will find around 60 to 70% of biodiversity. 60 to 70% of biodiversity you will find in this mega diversity zone. That is why these are very important. The diversity you will find around 60 to 70% in this zone. Now if you talk about India's specificity, you will find this, there are 6 types of soils are there, 4 climatic zones are there, 4 climatic, these are very specific regions, and according to one organization that is called Wildlife Institute of India, Wildlife Institute of India, according to them, they have divided this biodiversity in India, they have divided it into 10 regions. They have divided it into 10 regions. If you see this, there are 10 that we can say 10 biogeographical regions are there. So you will find there are 10 biogeographical regions. Let us, so how many there? 10 biogeographical regions are there. So first one you will find your Trans-Himalayan, second one is Himalayas, third one is your desert, fourth one is your semi-arid, fifth one is Western Ghat, and if you see the sixth one is your Deccan Peninsula, seventh one is your Gangetic Plain, eighth one is your northeast region, the ninth one is your coast, the 10th one is your Iceland. Now why I am talking of these things? Because where we need to find the diversity is more, that we need to know. And if you see this Deccan Peninsula, who is actually is sharing 42% of landmass. So it is 42% of the landmass. If you see then diversity region, the Deccan Peninsula is important. Now when we will talk about that means in the geographical regions it shares around 42%. And if you see this Western Ghat and your northeast, these two regions, if you see northeast is around 5 to 2% is it's a biodiversity, Western Ghat is around 4%. That shows these two regions is rich in biodiversity. Out of this 10 biogeographical region, your Western Ghat and northeast is sharing a measure in the distribution of in the different living organisms. So that shows these 10 geographical regions is very, very important from the biodiversity point of view. One can know, somebody will ask, in Odisha what type of forest is there? In Assam what type of forest is there? So as we have discussed in earlier classes, we know, suppose there is a tropical evergreen forest. Somebody can say the tropical, the temperate forest. Somebody can say the deciduous, the tropical deciduous forest. Another we can say the alpine. So somebody will say in Odisha, if you say from point of our state, we belong to the tropical deciduous forest. So your Odisha and Bihar, the tropical deciduous forest, patra jhada debe. If you talk about the temperate forest, your mountains of Himalaya, Nilgiri, Himalaya, these regions have temperate forest. If you talk about this Assam, Bengal, these are your tropical evergreen forest. Your Himalayan, that is region, the foot, that is alpine vegetations. So this shows there are a lot of variation in these geographical regions. So sometimes also comes which region is more in form of support the diversity, actually tropics. If you see, tropics is always gives higher diversity, because tropics have more energy. It has more energy, so it support more diversity. That means from the equator to the both sides, closest side, that area actually is having the more diversity you are finding. That is why tropics are very, very important. So next we will go to one concept of these things, what is called endemic. We will now discuss about what is endemic. When we find certain species are very, very restricted to one area, they are very specific to one area. So I will go with another terminology that is called endemic. Endemic species. So if I will talk the endemic species, you will find what is endemic, that is, it is restricted to a particular area or particular region. If a species is restricted to a particular area or region, that is called endemic, or we can say the another way, plants, animal species confined to an area. So that is called your endemic species. And you can talk, very interesting, in India there are 4,900 species of flowering plant. These are endemic to India and these are very specific. This is one example we can take. If you take, when this sort of things comes, endemics, we will talk, suppose mangroves. These mangroves, the Hentalavana, these are very specific in the Sundarbans, marshy land they will find. They are very restricted to that area only. So similarly, you can take the example of your mangrove vegetation, that is mangrove vegetation, which is available in your Sundarban. Okay. Now, when you talk about the endemic species, when they are restricted, that means one area having great biodiversity means have great endemism. That is very important. One area having great biodiversity, that means having more, you can say the area with more great biodiversity have high level of endemism. This is very, very important. That means here you will find this area, I am finding mangroves is a pocket there. So that area it is specific. So what will happen? More pressure will be on that area. So that area will be immediate threat. It will be under immediate threat of the habitat destruction, because they are very restricted. So they are now can be immediate threat of habitat. So taku ame kahuchu, these are called hotspots. These are called hotspots. Hotspots means when there will be number of species is endemic and these species are threat to habitat destruction, that area is declared as hotspot. So you will find in world there are 34 hotspots are there. The very good example we can take in India, the Western Ghat and the Eastern Himalayas. They are now the hotspot. That region, whatever the species are there, they are under threatened. So we need to conserve them. So my intention is to, this is one endemism, next one is your hotspot. These terminology need to be known. So you can take your Western Ghat. The example is your Western Ghat, and your you can take the Eastern Himalayas. Eastern Himalayas. So next we will go to the next point of this diversity, that is a pattern of diversity. How actually the diversity pattern lies, that you will find under this we will study two things. One is longitudinal or altitudinal pattern, another is species area pattern. So under this we will study now pattern of diversity. Under this we can discuss now pattern of diversity. So under this pattern of diversity we can study under what I was telling, longitudinal or longitude and altitude you must be knowing, altitudinal. Second I will talk about, that is called your species area relationship. Okay. Now if you will see these two things, you will find how this lies. Suppose when we move from the this equator, the tropics towards the polar region, you will find there is a variation you will find. So we will moving to the North Pole and South Pole, there is a variation you are finding. So if you will take one graph, from that one can analyze, this is the change in diversity, of an ant species, change in latitude. With latitude, the diversity of ant species is changing. That means northern latitude. When you move toward the northern latitude, here you will find the number of species. And if you take this thing in a graph forms, you can say that this is 20 degree, 30 degree, your 60, 80, you will find the graph is coming like this. So you will find a graph is coming and then towards 80. So that this shows that there is a variation in the curve. That means maximum diversity in the, one can say, from this example, one can say, depending upon the latitude, there is the variation of the species. As we know, the Amazon is the maximum variation you will find the Amazon zone. That is the Amazon forest. That is in the America, you will find, South America, you will find there are 40,000 species were there. 40,000 species of a plant, 3,000 species of a fish, and 1,300 birds are there. And you will find these species are now, because of this zone, and when you move from one area to another area, you must be knowing 6.5 degree per 1 kilometer it decreases when you moves upward. So accordingly, there will be variation in the species when you move along the latitude and longitudes. So you will find this species number is decline. The species number is decline when you move from north to south. When you move to north and south, from the equator, when you move to north and south, you will find there is the number of species decline because of these latitudes. So one thing you must be knowing, the latitudinal biodiversity gradient. What terminology ase sometimes in the exams, the LBG, that is called latitudinal biodiversity gradient. That means due to latitude, you are finding there is a gradation of the diversity. So this is one. This is also because of season. There also due to seasonal variation, you will also find these things. The second concept, when we will go to the species area, if we will draw a curve taking area in one axis and your number of species in another, number of species, you will find sometimes it is straight, sometimes it is a parabola like. So that shows species area curve express the relationship between the area of a habitat or a part of habitat per number of species found within that area. So it is, if it is a constant, you will find there is a growth, there is a continuous increase. this shows there is increase, then there is a decrease. So from that one can understood that how many number of species are there in particular area. So that species area curve also gives us the idea about what type of diversity pattern exists. So this is how one can say the biodiversity, how it can be studied at a different level. Next we will go the most important part of this thing, why the biodiversity is important for us, in what way it helps us. So that is we will discuss under the heading importance of biodiversity. So under this I will cite some of the heading, but you need to know example under each. So we will know next part we will go to the importance of biodiversity. So if you see the importance of biodiversity in a nutshell, there are three important things we can say. One is called, thus it provides stability, it helps in the productivity. Third one is called ecosystem health. If somebody will say in a nutshell, give what are the important, it provides stability, productivity, ecosystem. But when it comes in the detail, if you analyze how it is the importance of diversity, one can say that it can, India is knowing, it is the one among the 12th mega biodiversity regions. So India is among one. So if you see India, this biodiversity center, it has either it has some direct value or indirect value. It also helps. How directly it helps? If you see in the production of, that is it is used in agriculture, your agriculture, then your medicine and industry. Medicine and industry. If you see the indirect value means, here you will find the ecosystem has the ability to absorb these things. That is, absorbs the pollutions and maintains the soil fertility and micronutrients. That means here ecosystems how get the benefit. The indirect way, how the biodiversity helps the ecosystem, maintaining the fertility, maintaining the pollution levels. So it is second aspect. So let us come to the importance of biodiversity in agriculture. So like this, one by one we will have to discuss, that is biodiversity in agriculture. If you will see, due to variety of species is there in agriculture, you are finding lot of diversity, the production rate is very high. So we are now able to produce so many foods. That is, if you will see, around 80 to 90% food today we are getting, that is 10 to 20 species gives us these things. And if you will see, there are 80,000 species are there. Okay, but out of this 150 species we are taking for the cultivations. And these are providing 80 to 90% of our food. And this is the diversity. In agriculture, so many species are there, and for our importance, we are taking this number of species to produce our food. Similarly, we can take in medicine, if we take the example, in medicine, similarly you must be knowing, today everybody is now preferring the natural products. So that is why your modern medicine, 60 to 70% of modern medicine is from the natural product. The natural product, that is from the different plants and animals, you will find that is 20,000 plant species are used for this one. You can say 20,000 plant species are used for this medicine. So like this you can give example, the diversity of plant, animals, microorganisms, they are useful. One you can take Sarpagandha, this Raulpia serpentine, then Azadiricta indica, neem. These are now the plants which are used for medicine. So you will find variety of plants are used for medicine, variety of plants are used for in agriculture. That is how the diversity helps in our day-to-day lives. Third one, you can say the ecological importance. It is also ecologically very important. So ecological importance. If you see due to the biodiversity, you will find more diverse is there. You will find ecosystem is more stable. Suppose a ecosystem, the producer, the consumers, you are there, and there is a balance between these producer consumers. You are finding that is a stable ecosystem. So if it is a stable biodiversity, then you will find, and that means more biodiversity, rich biodiversity. That is a rich biodiversity. You will find a stable ecosystem. You will find a stable ecosystem. So less biodiversity means there will be more threatened. So ecosystem will not be in a stable conditions. So if you see similarly, it has also importance in industry. If you see in industry, for the different production, the raw materials you are finding, most of the raw materials you will find fibers, your gems, tannins, your dyes, latex, rubber, many things are being now used in the industry from the plant product, plant and animal product. Now due to the diversity, also industry is also getting a lot. Similarly, it has also importance in our day-to-day life, that is your aesthetic and cultural importance. Aesthetic and cultural importance. You must be knowing a word called sacred groups. Sacred groups. That means some plants are used in the ritual process. Your tulsi, Osimum sanctum, your hazel marmalus, bello, then your hibiscus, datura, these flowers are being used, your ficus, all these plants you are finding, they are used for our aesthetic value. So if you see its importance, the day-to-day life, it has been used for lot of uses. So starting from the rituals to your industry, medicine, for your ecosystem, many things, the diversity helps us. More the diversity, many more is the a stable ecosystem, as well as everything will be available. So now we need to know how these things should be conserved. Why it is conserved? Because they are in a great pressure. They are being lost day by day. So that is how we need to know how this biodiversity is being lost. So that we now will discuss the loss of biodiversity. What are the causes of the loss of biodiversity? Next we will see the causes of loss of biodiversity. Similarly, if you will see the different regions are there, first one is your habitat fragmentation. Second one is over exploitation. Third one you will find your alien species, new species are non-native species, they introduce disturbance and degradation. Next one is your intensive agriculture, sixth one is your forestry. So from this one can say, when a particular area is affected due to your industrialization process, human activities, you will find that habitat is lost there. And you will find that due to different activities, your many a forest is lost. If you take example, tropical rainforest was 14%, but today it is 6%. So you are finding the loss is due to this habitat or the fragmentation. A particular area is segregated into small areas for the development of a particular area or the inhabitation of that particular community. We particularly destroy this habitat. So that is one reason. Over exploitation, many a time we produce or we use that particular resource, so that population decreasing. You must be knowing the marine fish population is decreasing day by day, because we are now many a times we are doing the fishing purpose, so the population is decreasing because we are using that resource many a time. That is over exploitations. Suppose similarly alien species, that is non-native species introduce. Non-native species को आमे आनी कि से एरिया रे जदि छाड़िबा से एरिया टा नष्ट हबो. गोटे एग्जांपल होची हमर वाटर हाइसिंथ तार बॉटनिकल नाम हला एइकर्निया. से एइकर्निया प्लांट को आनी कि जते बेले छड़ा हितला सब पॉन्ड वाटर बॉडीज रे टू चेक द पोल्यूशन. But today you will find that it reduced pollution, but today you will find almost the water logging is because of this water hyacinth. Now the diversity has lost. It is not allowing other plant to grow in that particular water habitat. Similarly, disturbance and degradation in a particular area, you will find lot of disturbance. That means disturbance may be natural or that may be anthropogenic or man-made. So natural disturbance, you will find jungle fire, tree fall, pest, or because of man-made collection, litters, many things you are doing the disturbance. That is why the species is lost. Similarly, the most important that is called your pollution. So due to pollution, you are finding lot of species in the lakes, river, wetland are being lost due to these pollutions. And you will find a very good example. There are 50,000 to 250,000 birds are every year is lost per year because of these pollutions. So similarly, other aspects are there which is also responsible for the loss of diversity in the all over the world. So if you see the loss of diversity, that means due to human activities, you can say due to human activities, the species are being extinct. So I will go for two words here. You will find due to human activities, this anthropogenic activities, there is, you will find disappearance of species is happening, or extinction of species. Extinction of species is happening. That means that is the total loss or elimination of that particular species from a particular geographical area because of this human activities or anthropogenic activities. So if you see this due to the loss of the species, now you have a book called Red Data Book, and another is called your Green Book. I will come to say the Red Data Book, which is very, very important, where you will find this Red Data Book. That is, we know what is that, IUCN, International Union for conservations of nature and natural resources, they tells that this red data books, it enlists that particular the risk, the facing risk of extinction. It contains the list of risk of extinction. Those species are under the verge of extinction, and on the risk, their list is in this red data book, and you will find there are 8 categories are there. 8 categories are there under this red data books, starting from your endangered, which I will describe in the part of that is biological diversity conservation, but we should know these are very buzzword. E starts with endangered, V starts with vulnerable, R stands for your rare, T stands for threatened, O stands for that is called your out of danger, and I stands for intermittent. So these are the very, very important words. We have to know about these things. So next part of my discussion, I will go at how biodiversity can be conserved. Thank you, students, for your kind patience.